Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the work of Rudolf Steiner. This is Christianity as a Mystical Fact and the Mysteries of Antiquity. We are on chapter 2. We will be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everyone, but some people seem to find enjoyment in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along. But before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, in the box below, along with the original source material so that you can get a better understanding of me and why I say the things that I do. You are more than welcome to tag along, but we're going to have a little bit of an extra intro here today, so if this ain't the thing for you, be blessed everywhere. I hold some unconventional beliefs. Among those is the fact that nobody ever had to die in order for you to be forgiven for sin. I have 161 videos where we went through in painstaking detail. We read all of the begats so that I could clarify for you why I stand where I do. There is a tendency among those who hold that Christianity is the only way to hold on to that with dear life, despite the fact that there are several other ways that the book itself tells you many times that there was no required sacrifice for you to be forgiven from sin in not even arguable language. It is told repeatedly to you that no animal ever had to die for you to be forgiven for sin. That includes a human being. That includes the New Testament. I have gone through in painstaking detail so that I don't have to in every video, but every once in a while, we need to reinforce the fact that this channel, these studies, they're open to anyone, but they are not for everyone. Not everyone has the capacity to think outside of the limits that they were born into. They don't have the capacity to expand, to assimilate new information, to come to new conclusions, to deviate from the script that they have been given, and that is fine. You're more than welcome to not be here. This is not for everyone. I'm not the person that believes that I am going to change the entirety of the world, but I am here to stand 10 toes down for the Lord my God, the one who created the entirety of everything, the one who is every single thing. And he is not limited. He is not limited except in the fact that he does not incarnate here. He does that through us, but not for us. He does not come as a person at any point in time to ever walk the earth as the salvation. It is up to us to find him where he is. Now, he will find you where you are when you are truly seeking him. But there was never a required sacrifice for you to be forgiven from sin. And it is extremely narcissistic to assume that I am wrong simply because of the way that you believe. People will come and they will tell you, well, I haven't taken the time to study, but I know. That is what happens here all the time. I have taken the time. I have put in the work. I have done the thing that God himself asked me to do. I am here to break apart the control systems. Does that mean that they are going to go away overnight? Absolutely not. I'm not here to take the fight to any of these preachers who are out here telling you the wrong thing. I'm not out here trying to enforce my will on anyone. I'm here to tell you the things that God has told me. And I have the proof. I have the healing. That is proof. I, through the will of the Lord God Almighty, on this path, have healed myself. I have healed my throat. I have healed my shoulder. But on top of that, my God gives me the things that I ask for. I asked for this election to go exactly the way that it did, and it did. I give thanks to God for that. As soon as I woke up and I saw the results, I was like, thank you, God, for answering my prayers, because that's what happened. It doesn't matter to me that everybody else on the entire planet was praying. I prayed, and my God answered me. The same God who healed me, the same God who is changing the circumstances in my life, the same God who put me on this particular path. And I understand that it is a little bit hard to hear that you have been wrong the entirety of your life, but it is true. Nobody ever had to die on a cross for you to be forgiven from sin, and that is just what the book says. And if you have a problem with that, then take it up with the person who is supposedly the author. Now, I know full well that God did not write that book, that maybe it was divinely inspired, that maybe it had a purpose, and maybe it has brought us up from some terrible things. But it still contains some terrible things that are completely against God in its entirety. It is completely contradictory, sometimes within the same chapter, within the same book. We have shown that indisputably. There is no getting around that particular fact. Now, most of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but the one person who this is for, you know who I'm talking about. I'm out here living the life. I am out here changing my life. I have received the healing from God himself. What have you got? What is your contribution to the argument? It cannot be, well, did you consider? Because we have already considered it. We have 161 videos where we considered it in its entirety. Now, this particular introduction, it might chase you off, and if so, that is fine. I am not here for everyone. We wear steel toes around here. We don't get our feelings hurt, right? This isn't feelings hurt. This is letting you know. I am here on a mission from God. And that mission is to pull back that veil and to show that, no, Christianity is not a mystical fact. It is to show that, in fact, the way that Christianity has been represented has been wrong. Was Jesus a person? Yeah, probably so. Did he do miracles? Yeah, probably so. Was he raised from the dead? Yeah, probably so. But you know what? None of that has anything to do with your salvation. None of it. The only way that you can be saved from your life of sin is to turn to God, is to ask God for forgiveness. It is to seek him. It is not to seek an intermediary. It is not to pray in anyone else's name. It is to seek God first and foremost in all of your ways. And I can tell you, sir, you are not doing that. I went to your page. I looked at what you have on your page. And you are not doing that, sir. You are not bearing the fruit. But you know who is bearing the fruit? You know who is out here giving the testimony to God every single day? You know who is out here helping people to change their lives every day? I am. Because my God put me on this path. And again, this may be too much for you. If this is too much for you, you will not like any study on my channel. Be blessed somewhere else. I am here for God and God alone, with no intermediary ever. And if that is too much for you, this is not the place for you. With that being said, now we are going to dive into chapter 2, the mysteries and their wisdom. A kind of mysterious veil hangs over the manner in which spiritual needs were satisfied during the older civilizations by those who sought a deeper religious life and fuller knowledge than the popular religions offered. If we inquire how these needs were satisfied, we find ourselves led into the dim twilight of the mysteries, and the individual seeking them disappears for a time for our observation. We see how it is that the popular religions cannot give him what his heart desires. He acknowledges the existence of the gods, but he knows that the ordinary ideas about them do not solve the great problems of existence. He seeks a wisdom which is jealously guarded by a community of priest sages. His aspiring soul seeks a refuge in this community. If he is found by the sages to be sufficiently prepared, he is led up by them, step by step, to higher knowledge in places hidden from the eyes of outward observers. When this happens to him, what then happens to him is concealed from the uninitiated. He seems for a time to be entirely removed from earthly life and to be transported into a hidden world. When he reappears in the light of day, a different, quite transformed person is before us. We see a man who cannot find words sublime enough to express the momentous experience through which he has passed. Not merely metaphorically, but in a most real sense does he seem to have gone through the gate of death and to have awakened to a new and higher life. He is, moreover, quite certain that no one who has not had a similar experience can understand his words. And this is an important thing. We're going to talk about this, right? Because the spiritual experience is a very real thing. And people somehow cannot wrap their mind around this, but I'm going to tell you something. I had a spiritual experience in the church. I had a spiritual experience where I accepted Christ as my Savior. And then my life bore no fruits. I changed. I did the things like I do now. I did all of the things. We were in church 3 days a week. We were part of the committees and the classes. We went to all of the groups and the gatherings. And you know what was not in those groups and gatherings? Right? If you went to a Bible study, then yes, there was a Bible study. But if you went to a Sunday school gathering outside of the church, nobody wanted to talk about God at all. Nobody wanted to talk about Jesus. Nobody wanted to talk about any of that. They wanted to talk about sports. They wanted to talk about the dramas on TV. They wanted to talk about the various things going on out in the world, but nobody wanted to talk about God. But they had a spiritual experience, so they are convinced this must be true. Well, here's the truth. That spiritual experience happens outside of the church too. It does. Does that surprise you? Is that something new to you? Because if it is, then you are not paying any attention whatsoever. Do you not think that maybe the followers of Muhammad have a spiritual experience? Do you believe that the words that they read are true? You don't. You really don't. And so there's a conundrum there. Well, here's something that's even more of a conundrum, because at least the Mohammedans, they are Abrahamic, right? Well, what about the Hindus? They have spiritual experiences too. They experience truth and it changes their life. That is a thing that happens. What about the Buddhists? They do the same thing. You know what? The spiritual experience is not relegated to your religion. The spiritual experience, the truth that is God, is not held for you in exclusivity. It's not held for me in exclusivity. I have a path. I have a way I am showing people. That is true. But it may not be your way. It may not be your path. There is more than one way. I am firmly convinced that I am on the correct path, but I don't have to die for that to be true. I have had another spiritual experience outside of the church. I've had a better spiritual experience outside of the church. I was taken on a guided tour of the universe. I saw creation happen. I was inducted into the order of Melchizedek. I have experienced healing. I have found calmness. I know it doesn't seem that way because of the way I'm doing this here, but this is part of the process. I have found peace. I have found love. I have found all of the fruits that you were promised in your religion, but you are the one holding on to bitterness. I'm upset now because I invest my time in this. I have done the Bible study. I have walked through in excruciating detail. And yet, people come and they're like, yeah, but did you consider that maybe? Yes, I did. I did extensively consider the first 1900 years of Christianity. I did. And you know what? I found it severely lacking. I found it not following the precepts of Christ at all. Not at all. Since the time Constantine instituted Christianity up until the present day, I have not seen God's fruits through Christianity. I have not. It's not existent. There's no physical record of good things coming. There is plenty of fear. There is plenty of conversions. There's plenty of conquering. There's plenty of territory taken. Yes, you have enforced by the point of a sword the experience that Jesus had to die for you. But you know what? It doesn't make it true. And the time has come for a falling away. The time has come for a falling away. So yes, these people prior to Jesus, they had spiritual experiences that changed their life. That's what this just told us. But you won't read that and see that. You will say, well, they were just preparing for Jesus to come in a couple thousand years. And you're wrong, right? To think that God is limited from forgiving you from your sins unless you accept that this person died halfway through history is silly. And I know that steps on toes, but you know what? Toes need to be stepped on. If your toes are that sensitive, they need to be crushed. Because honestly, it's not that sensitive over here. Like, you can question me, it's fine, right? This is a reaction, but this is a reaction because this happens more than once, right? This isn't the first time you've popped up in my comments with the same argument. It's whatever. Like, you don't have to believe this. Doesn't make it not true. I firmly believe that there was never an intermediary needed for you to be forgiven from your sin. That the only thing that had to die was your sin. And that is repeated throughout the book that you hold dear. And I showed that. I walked through that. I showed you repeatedly the hypocrisy. This was what happened to those who were initiated into the mysteries, into that secret wisdom withheld from the people, and which threw light on the greatest questions. This secret religion of the elect existed side by side with the popular religion. Its origin vanishes, as far as history is concerned, into the obscurity in which the origin of nations is lost. We find this secret religion everywhere amongst the ancients as far as we know anything concerning them, and we hear their sages speak of the mysteries with the greatest reverence. What was it that was concealed in them, and what did they unveil to the initiate? I can tell you I have a whole playlist dedicated to that. The enigma becomes still more puzzling when we discover that the ancients looked upon the mysteries as something dangerous. The way leading to the secrets of existence passed through a world of terrors, and woe to him who tried to gain them unworthily. There was no greater crime than the betrayal of secrets to the uninitiated. The traitor was punished with death and the confiscation of his property. We know that the poet Aeschylus was accused of having reproduced on the stage something from the mysteries. He was only able to escape death by fleeing to the altar of Dionysus and by legally proving that he had never been initiated. I have never been initiated by anyone but God. God gave me the only experience that counts. Right? I, through prayer, fasting, and meditation, have come to know God better. I have seen the works of his hand, but you don't see his face. And you want to know why? Because he doesn't have one. God is everything. He is me. He is you. He is the space between me and you, and the space between me and you. He is everything you can see and everything that you can't see. The Holy Spirit encompasses everything. He is everything. And so, yes, he was here prior to. He will be here long after us. Right? The Holy Spirit exists independently of any man. What the ancients say about these secrets is significant, but at the same time ambiguous. The initiate is convinced that it would be a sin to tell what he knows, and also that it would be sinful for the uninitiated to listen. I'm not part of any club. That was what I was getting to at the last one. I've not been initiated into anything except what God has put me in. Plutarch speaks of the terror of those about to be initiated and compares their state of mind to preparation for death. A special mode of life had to precede initiation, tending to give the spirit the mastery over the senses. Fasting, solitude, mortifications, and certain exercises for the souls were the means employed. The things to which man clings in ordinary life were to lose all their value for him. The whole trend of his life of sensation and feeling was to be changed. Yeah, I can vouch for that, right? Fasting, solitude. Now, mortifications tends to deal more with physical punishment, right? That's the people that whip themselves and all of that. That is not necessary at all. That is the extra bits that keep getting added on, right? Mortification is not part of it. Prayer, fasting, and meditation, absolutely. That would be the solitude, right? Prayer is actively talking. It is giving your thanks. It is asking for things. Fasting allows your body to be prepared to hear back from God. You hear a little bit better when you're a little bit hungry. And then the solitude here, that is meditation. That is you shutting up and letting God talk to you. That's what that is. The things to which man clings in ordinary life were to lose all their value for him. The whole trend of his life of sensation and feeling was about to be changed. And that is definitely true too, because when you have had the spiritual awakening like I have gone through, the priorities do shift, right? I'm a non-aggressive person these days. I used to be the kind of person that flew off of the handle and fought with whoever for whatever reason. That was me. I lived a life of violence. Since my conversion to whatever it is that I am in now, I don't know that there is an actual religion, right? I just worship God. It's that simple. But since this experience, I don't have those problems anymore. There are still things that give me rise, right? There are still things like my neighbor who step on my toes and I have problems. But that is lessons to me to learn, right? Lessons to me about communication. My outlook has changed. It is hard for me to not be aggressive, right? I don't like hurting feelings, but when something is correct, I have no problems hurting feelings. That's part of how I am built, part of how my stack is put together. And I like the truth, regardless of where it may lead. If it leads to something I disagree with, then I have to change my agreement, because the truth is the truth regardless. And the truth is that God is. The truth is that the only thing required for you to be forgiven from your sin is for you to ask for it. That was an entire change of perspective for me. When I went on my spiritual experience and I was yanked out of my body and I saw the creation of everything, it changed the way that I viewed everything. Now, we may not be in accord. We may not be in agreement, and that is because we're on different paths. My path leads to serving God, and sometimes that is going to be an aggressive path. That is an understanding that I am coming to. I don't want to be out here chasing the Joel Osteens and telling everybody, man, this guy is messed up. He is completely off base. I don't want to be the guy out here telling you that not even the Joel Osteens, but some of these other teachers that you have been listening to for 40, 50, 60 years, they're playing a game too. They know the number one reason people leave seminary is not because of academics. It is because they see what is written and they cannot abide by it. The people who stay are the ones who can. They're the ones who either choose to say the things knowing that they're untrue, or they're just too dumb to get it. And that's not trying to cast aspersions. It's just a fact. Right? You cannot read the book objectively and come to the conclusions that have been taught from the pulpit. You can't. And me being aggressive, like, I'm embracing it more, right? I'm getting to the point where I am okay with, no, your religion is just silly. I didn't start that way, I promise you. This has been a long process, but like, by going through and talking about these things again and again with the exact same reasoning, right? There is a reason why. And then it makes sense. There can be no doubt as to the meaning of such exercises and tests. The wisdom which was to be offered to the candidate for initiation could only produce the right effect upon his soul if he had previously purified the lower life of his sensibility. He was introduced to the life of the spirit. He was to behold a higher world, but he could not enter into relations with that world without previous exercises and tests. The relations thus gained were the condition of initiation. Your life does indeed have to change if you are going to walk the path. In order to obtain a correct idea on this matter, it is necessary to gain experience of the intimate facts of the growth of knowledge. We must feel that there are two widely divergent attitudes towards that which the highest knowledge gives. The world surrounding us, to us at first, is to us at first the real one. We feel, hear, and see what goes on in it. And because we thus perceive things with our senses, we call them real, and we reflect about events in order to get an insight into their connections. On the other hand, what wells up in our soul is at first not real to us in the same sense. It is merely thoughts and ideas. At the most, we see in them only images of reality. They themselves have no reality, for we cannot touch, see, or hear them. There is another way of being connected with things. A person who clings to the kind of reality described above will hardly understand it. But it comes to certain people at some moment in their lives. To them, the whole connection with the world is completely reversed. They actually call the images which well up in the spiritual lives of their souls actually real, and they assign only a lower kind of reality to what the senses hear, touch, feel, and see. They know that they cannot prove what they say, that they can only relate their new experiences, and that when relating them to others, they are in the position of a man who can see, and who imparts his visual impressions to one born blind. That is where I am, right? That is why I have the frustration today, right? Because I have had the blinders lifted. I have seen what is the actual intention for what we are here for, right? The whole scope of the lessons, the physical manipulation of the energies, right? I am literally doing the things that everybody else is just talking about. And yet I'm the one that's wrong because I took the time to actually do the research. It's wild. It's wild. I'm here talking to the blind about the color blue. It doesn't matter what I say about it. You will not be able to understand it. I am trying, though. I really am trying to give you the experience, and I can't. Right? I can only relay it, and I'm not here to convince you. I tell you that all of the time, and I really do mean that. I have to tell you, that is my calling. That is what I have been put here to do, and the more I embrace it, the better my life gets. And it is not the things of the world that I am being blessed with. It is the things of a spiritual nature. It is peace, love, and harmony that I get out of it. It is healing and completeness that I get out of it. It is a better way going forward that I get out of it. It is not about money and riches. I could chase that. I could. I'm not. I'm here to relate to you that this experience that I had was real. You don't have to believe it. And one day I will quit hammering it, but in no uncertain terms, God told me to say these things. Right? The things that I say here are a direct revelation to me. They have been given to me to relay to you, and I get to bear the fruit for doing that. So I'm going to continue. Like, I've literally healed myself, right? Through the power of the Holy Spirit. Don't get it twisted. God is first for me in all things. But that is not your impression of God. It is the real God. It is the stripping away of the control system's God. They venture to impart their inner experiences, trusting that there are others around them whose spiritual eyes, though as yet closed, may be opened by the power of what they hear. They have faith in humanity and want to give it spiritual sight. They can only lay before it the fruits which their spirit has gathered. Whether another sees them depends on his spiritual eyes being opened or not. There is something in man which at first prevents him from seeing with the eyes of spirit. He is not there for that purpose. He is what his senses are, and his intellect is only the interpreter and judge of them. The senses would ill fulfill their mission if they did not insist upon the truth and infallibility of their evidence. An eye must, from its own point of view, uphold the absolute reality of its perceptions. The eye is right as far as it goes, and it is not deprived of its due by the eye of the spirit. The latter only allows us to see the things of sense in a higher light. Nothing seen by the eye of sense is denied, but a new brightness, hitherto unseen, radiates from what is seen. That is true. And then We know that what we first saw was only a lower reality. We see that still, but it is immersed in something higher, which is spirit. That is true. It is now a question of whether we realize and feel what we see. One who lives only in the sensations and feelings of the senses will look upon impressions of higher things as fata morgana, or mere play of fancy. His feelings are entirely directed towards the things of sense. He grasps emptiness when he tries to lay hold of spirit forms. They withdraw from him when he gropes after them. They are just mere thoughts. He thinks them but does not live them. They are images, less real to him than fleeting dreams. They rise up like bubbles while he is standing in his reality. They disappear before the massive, solidly built reality of which his senses tell him. It is otherwise with one whose perceptions and feelings with regard to reality have changed. For him, that reality has lost its absolute stability and value. His senses and feelings need not be numbed, but they begin to be doubtful of their absolute authority. They leave room for something else. The world of the spirit begins to animate the space left. The ability to see the subtle fields helped with the change. That is an absolute truth, and that's what he's talking about. When I look at things, when I do trigger the correct frame of mind and I make the reality shift, I can see the subtle fields. It is something extra added on to the things that you actually see. And so, yes, he just described something to you. At this point, a possibility comes in which may prove terrible. A man may lose his sensations and feelings of outer reality without finding any new reality opening up before him. He then feels himself as if suspended in the void. He feels as if he was dead. The old values have disappeared and no new ones have arisen in their place. The world and man no longer exist for him. This, however, is by no means a mere possibility. It happens at some time or other to everyone who is seeking for higher knowledge. He comes to a point at which the spirit represents all life to him as death. He is then no longer in the world, but under it, in the netherworld. He is passing through Hades. Well for him if he sink not. Happy if a new world open up before him. Either he dwindles away or he appears to himself transfigured. In the latter case, he beholds a new sun and a new earth. The whole world has been born again for him out of spiritual fire. It is thus that the initiates describe the effect of the mysteries upon them. Menippus relates that he journeyed to Babylon in order to be taken to Hades and to be brought back again by the successors of Zarathustra. He says that he swam across the great water on his wanderings, that he passed through fire and ice. We hear that the mystics were terrified by a flashing sword and that blood flowed. We understand this when we know from experience the point of transition from lower to higher knowledge. We then feel as if all solid matter and things of sense had dissolved into water, and as if the ground were cut away from under our feet. Everything is dead which we felt before to be alive. The spirit has passed through the life of the senses, as a sword pierces a warm body. We have seen the blood of sense nature flow, but a new life has appeared. We have risen from the nether world. The orator Aristides relates this. I thought I touched the god and felt him draw near, and I was then between waking and sleeping. My spirit was so light that no one who is not initiated can speak of or understand it. This new existence was not subject to the laws of lower life. Growth and decay no longer had affected. One may say much about the eternal, but words of one who has not been through Hades are mere sound and smoke. The initiates have a new conception of life and death. Now, for the first time, do they feel they have the right to speak about immortality. They know that one who speaks of it without having been initiated talks of something which he does not understand. We see that a lot these days. The uninitiated attribute immortality only to something which is subject to the laws of growth and decay. The mystics, however, did not merely desire to gain the conviction that the kernel of life is eternal. According to the view of the mystery, such a conviction would be quite valueless, For this view holds that the eternal is not present as a living reality in the uninitiated. If such a one spoke of the eternal, he would be speaking of something non-existent. It is rather the eternal itself that the mystics are seeking. They have first to awaken the eternal within them. Then they can speak of it. Hence, the hard saying of Plato is quite real to them, that the uninitiated sinks into the mire and that only one who has passed through the mystical life enters eternity. I don't believe that. It is only only someone who has been passed through the mystical here can experience life here and the understanding of eternity here. But even if you have not been initiated into the mysteries, you will get to experience the eternal. The soul is eternal. It was somewhere prior to being here. It will be somewhere once it leaves here. You are here for the experience of the 5D reality that we're in. And so it is only in this sense that the words in the fragment of Sophocles can be understood. Thrice blessed are the initiated who come into the realm of the shades. They alone have life there. For others there is only mystery, misery, and hardship. Is one, therefore, not describing dangers when speaking of the mysteries? Is it not robbing a man of his happiness in the best part of his life to take him to the portals of the netherworld? Terrible is the responsibility incurred by such an act, and yet, ought we to refuse that responsibility? These were the questions which the initiated had to put to himself. He was of opinion that his knowledge bore the same relation to the soul of the people as light does to darkness. But innocent happiness dwells in that darkness. And the mystics were of the opinion that that happiness should not be sacrilegiously interfered with. For what would have happened in the first place if the mystic had betrayed his secret? He would have uttered words and only words. The feelings and emotions which would have evoked the spirit from the words would have been absent. To do this, preparation, exercises, tests, and a complete change in the life of sense were necessary. Without this, the hearer would have been hurled into emptiness and nothingness. He would have been deprived of what constituted his happiness, without receiving anything in exchange. One may also say that one could take nothing away from him, for mere words would change nothing in his life or feeling. He would have only been able to feel and experience reality through his senses. Nothing but a terrible misgiving, fatal to life, would be given him. This could only be construed as a crime. The wisdom of the mysteries is like a hothouse plant, which must be cultivated and fostered in seclusion. Anyone bringing it into the atmosphere of everyday ideas brings it into air which it cannot flourish. It withers away to nothing before the caustic verdict of modern science and logic. Let us therefore divest ourselves for a time of the education we gain through the microscope and telescope and the habit of thought derived from natural science, and let us cleanse our clumsy hands, which have been too busy with dissecting and experimenting, in order that we may enter the pure temple of the mysteries. For this is a candid and unbiased attitude of mind is necessary. An important point for the mystic is, at first, the frame of mind in which he approaches that which to him is the highest, the answers to the riddles of existence. Just in our day, when only gross physical science is recognized as containing truth, it is difficult to believe that in the highest things we depend on the keynote of the soul. Knowledge, thereby, becomes an intimate, personal concern. But this is what it really is to the mystic. Tell someone of the solution of the riddle of the universe. Give it to him ready-made. The mystic will find it to be nothing but empty sound if the personality does not meet the solution halfway in the right manner. The solution in itself is nothing. It vanishes as if the necessary feeling is not kindled at its contact. A divinity approaches you. It is either everything or nothing. Nothing if you meet it in the frame of mind with which you confront everyday matters. Everything if you are prepared and attuned to the meeting. What the divinity is in itself is a matter which does not affect you. The important point for you is whether it leaves you as it found you or makes another man of you. But this depends entirely on yourself. You must have been prepared by a special education. by a development of the innermost forces of your personality for the work of kindling and releasing what a divinity is able to kindle and release in you. What is brought to you depends on the reception you give to it. Plutarch has told us about this education and of the greeting which the mystic offers the divinity approaching him. For the god, as it were, greets each one who approaches him with the words, "Know thyself," which is surely no worse than the ordinary greeting, "Welcome." Then we answer the divinity in the words, "Thou art," and thus we affirm that the true, primordial, and only adequate greeting for him is to declare that he is. In that existence we really have no part here, for every mortal being, situated between birth and destruction, merely manifests in appearance a feeble and uncertain image of itself. If we try to grasp it with our understanding, it is as when water is tightly compressed and runs over merely through the pressure, spoiling what it touches. For the understanding, pursuing too definite conception of each being that is subject to accidents and change, loses its way, now in the origin of the being, now in its destruction, and is unable to apprehend anything lasting or really existing. For, as Heraclitus says, we cannot swim twice in the same wave, neither can we lay hold of a mortal being twice in the same state, for though the violence and rapidity of movement, it is destroyed and recomposed, it comes into being and again decays, it comes and goes. Therefore, that which is becoming can neither attain real existence, because growth neither ceases nor pauses. Change begins in the germ and follows an embryo. Then there appears a child, then a youth, a man, and an old man. The first beginnings and successive ages are continually annulled by the ensuing ones. Hence it is ridiculous to fear one death when we have already died in so many ways, and are still dying. For as Heraclitus says, not only is the death of fire the birth of air, and the death of air the birth of water, but the same change may be still more plainly seen in man. The strong man dies when he becomes old, the youth when he becomes a man, the boy on becoming a youth, and the child on becoming a boy. What existed yesterday dies today. What is here today will die tomorrow. Nothing endures or is a unity, but we become many things, whilst matter wanders around one image, one common form. For if we were always the same, how could we take pleasure in things which formerly did not please us? How could we love and hate, admire and blame opposite things? How could we speak differently and give ourselves up to different passions, unless we were endowed with a different shape, form, and different senses? For no one can rightly come into a different state without change. And one who is changed is no longer the same, but if he is not the same, he no longer exists and is changed from what he was, becoming something else. Sense perception only led us astray because we do not know real being and mistook it for that which is only an appearance. Plutarch often describes himself as an initiate. What he portrays here is a condition of the life of the mystic. Man acquires a kind of wisdom, by means of which his spirit sees through the elusive character of the sense life, when the senses regard as being or reality is plunged into the stream of becoming, and man is subject to the same conditions in this respect as all other things in the world. Before the eyes of his spirit he himself dissolves. The sum total of his being is broken up into parts, into fleeting phenomena. Birth and death lose their distinctive meaning and become moments of appearing and disappearing, just as much as any other happenings in the world. The highest cannot be found in the connection between development and decay. It can only be sought in what is really abiding, in what looks back to the past and forward to the future. To find that which looks, an example, the spirit, backwards and forwards is the first stage of knowledge. This is the spirit, which is manifesting in and through the physical. It has nothing to do with physical growth. It does not come into being and again decay as do sense phenomena. One who lives entirely in the world of sense carries the spirit laden within him. One who has pierced through the illusion of the world of sense has the spirit within him as a manifest reality. The man who attains to this insight has developed a new principle within him. Something has happened within him as in a plant when it adds a colored flower to its green leaves. It is true, the forces causing the flower to grow were already latent in the plant before the blossom appeared, but they only became effective when this took place. Divine, spiritual forces are latent in the man who lives merely through his senses, but they only become a manifest reality in the initiate. Such is the transformation which takes place in the mystic. By his development, he has added a new element to the world. The world of sense made him a human being endowed with senses, and then left him to himself. Nature had thus fulfilled her mission. What she is able to do with the powers operative in man is exhausted. Not so the forces themselves. They lie as though spellbound in the merely natural man and await their release. They cannot release themselves. They fade away to nothing unless man seizes upon them and develops them, unless he calls into actual being what is latent within him. See the Infinite Integrations playlist for more on how to do that. Nature evolves from the imperfect to the perfect. She leads beings through a long series of stages, from inanimate matter through all living forms up to physical man. Man looks around and finds himself a changing being with physical reality. But he also perceives within him the forces from which the physical reality arose. These forces are not what change, for they have given birth to the changing world. They are within man as a sign that there is more life within him than he can physically perceive. What they may make man is not yet there. He feels something flash up within him which created everything, including himself, and he feels that this will inspire him to higher creative activity. This something is within him. It existed before his manifestation in the flesh, and will exist afterwards. By means of it, he became, but he may lay hold of it and take part in his creative activity. Such are the feelings animating the mystic after initiation. He feels the eternal and divine. His activity is to become a part of that divine creative activity. He may say to himself, I have discovered a higher ego within me, but that ego extends beyond the bounds of my sense existence. It existed before my birth and will exist after my death. That's called the soul. This ego has created from all eternity, and it will go on creating in all eternity. My physical personality is a creation of this ego, but it has incorporated me within it. It works within me. I am a part of it. What I henceforth create will be higher than the physical. My personality is only a means for this creative power, for this divine is within me. Thus did the mystic experience his birth into the divine. The mystic called the power that flashed up within him a demon. He was himself the product of this demon. It seemed to him as though another being had entered him and taken possession of his organs, a being standing between his physical personality and the all-ruling cosmic power, the divinity. The mystic sought this, his demon. He said to himself, I have become a human being in mighty nature, but nature did not complete her task. This completion I must take in hand myself, but I cannot accomplish it in the gross kingdom of nature to which my physical personality belongs. What it is possible to develop in that realm has already been developed. Therefore I must leave this kingdom and take up the building in the realm of the spirit at the point where nature left off. I must create an atmosphere of life not to be found in outer nature. I don't necessarily agree with the mechanics of this. We are here to affect here. We do that through the spiritual realm, yes, but it is to make changes here. This atmosphere of life was prepared for the mystic in the mystery temples, where the forces slumbering within him were awakened. There he was changed into a higher, creative, spirit nature. This transformation was a delicate process. It could not bear the untempered atmosphere of everyday life. But when once it was completed, its result was that the initiate stood as a rock, rising from the eternal and able to defy all storms. But it was impossible for him to reveal his experiences to anyone unprepared to receive them. And maybe that's what my problem is I'm trying to reach people who are not prepared. Plutarch says that the mysteries give us deep understanding of the true nature of the demons. And Cicero tells us that from the mysteries, when they are explained and traced back to their meaning, we learn the nature of things rather than that of the gods. From such statements, we see clearly that there were higher revelations for the mystics about the nature of things than that which popular religion was able to impart. Indeed, we see that the demons, in example, spiritual beings, and the gods themselves, need explaining. Therefore, initiates went back to beings of a higher nature than demons or gods, and this was characteristic of the essence of the wisdom of the mysteries. The people represented the gods and demons in images borrowed from the world of sense reality. Would not one who had penetrated into the nature of the eternal doubt about the eternal nature of such gods as these? How could Zeus, the Zeus of popular imagination, be eternal if he bore within him the qualities of a perishable being? He wasn't. One thing was clear to the mystics, that man arrives at a conception of the gods in a different way from the conception of other things. An object belonging to the outer world compels us to form a very definite idea of it. In contrast to this, we form our conception of the gods in a freer and somewhat arbitrary manner. The control of the outer world is absent. Reflection teaches us that we conceive as gods, that what we conceive as gods is not subject to outer control. This places us in logical uncertainty. We begin to feel that we ourselves are the creators of our gods. Indeed, we ask ourselves how we have arrived at the conception of the universe that goes beyond physical reality. The initiate was obliged to ask himself such questions. His doubts were justified. Look at all the representations of the god, he might think of himself. Are they not like the beings we meet in the world of sense? Did not man create them for himself? By giving or withholding from them, in his thought, some quality belonging to beings of the sense world. If you're looking for a sky daddy, this is where your mistake lies. The savage lover of the chase creates a heaven in which the gods themselves take part in glorious hunting, and the Greek peopled his Olympus with divine beings, whose models were taken from his own surroundings. They did that in the New Testament too. I'm going to break it to you. The philosopher Xenophanes, BC 575 to 480, drew attention to this fact with crude logic. We know that the older Greek philosophers were entirely dependent on the wisdom of the mysteries. We will afterwards prove this in detail, beginning with Heraclitus. What Xenophanes says may at once be taken as the conviction of a mystic. It runs thus. Men who picture the gods as created in their own human forms give them human senses, voices, and bodies. But if cattle and lions had hands and knew how to use them, like men, in painting and working, they would paint the forms of the gods and shape their bodies as their own bodies were constituted. Horses would create gods in horse form, and cattle would make gods like bulls. And that is the problem in the New Testament. That is the problem in the New Testament. That's the problem in the New Testament. Though through insight of this kind, man may begin to doubt the existence of anything divine. That's because you are limiting the divine. He may reject all mythology and only recognize as reality what is forced upon him by his sense perception. But the mystic did not become a doubter of this kind. He saw that the doubter would be like a plant, or to say, "My crimson flowers are null and futile because I am complete with my green leaves. What I may add to them is only adding elusive appearance." Just as little could the mystic rest content with gods thus created, the gods of the people. If the plant could think, it would understand that the forces which created its green leaves are also destined to create crimson flowers, and it would not rest till it had investigated those forces and come face to face with them. This was the attitude of the mystic towards the gods of the people. He did not deny them or say they were illusion, but he knew they had been created by man. The same forces, the same divine element which are at work in nature, are at work in the mystic. They create within him images of the gods. He wishes to see the force that creates the gods. It comes from a higher source than the gods. Xenophanes alludes to it thus: "There is one God greater than all gods and men. His form is not like that of mortals. His thoughts are not their thoughts." And that's where I am. This God was also the God of the mysteries. He might have been called a hidden God, for man can never find him with his senses only. Look at the outer things around you. You will find nothing divine. Except your reason, you may be able to detect the laws by which things appear and disappear, but even your reason will not show you anything divine. Saturate your imagination with religious feeling, and you may be able to create images which you may take to be gods, but your reason will pull them to pieces, for it will prove to you that you created them yourself and borrowed the material from the sense world, so long as you look at outer things in your quality of simply a reasonable being. You must deny the existence of God. For God is hidden from the senses and from that reason of yours which explains sense perceptions. God lies hidden, spellbound in the world, and you need his own power to find him. You must awaken that power in yourself. These are the teachings which were given to the candidate for initiation. And again, if you would like to know how to do that, you can check out the Infinite Integrations playlist or the Esoterica Explained. And now there began for him the great cosmic drama with which his life was bound up. The action of the drama meant nothing less than the deliverance of the spellbound God. Where is God? This was the question asked by the soul of the mystic. God is not existent, but nature exists, and in nature he must be found. There he has found an enchanted grave. It was in a higher sense that the mystic understood the words, God is love, for God has exalted that love to its climax. He has sacrificed himself in infinite love. He has poured himself out, fallen into number in the manifold of nature. Things in nature live, and he does not live. He slumbers within them. We are able to awaken him, if we are to give him existence. We must deliver him by the creative power within us. The candidate now looks unto himself. As latent creative power is yet without existence, the divine is living in his soul. In the soul is a sacred place where the spellbound God may wake to liberty. This soul is the mother who is able to conceive the God by nature. If the soul allows herself to be impregnated by nature, she will give birth to the divine. God is born from the marriage of the soul with nature, no longer a hidden but a manifest God. He has life, a perceptible life wandering amongst men. He is the God freed from enchantment, the offspring of the God who is hidden by a spell. He is not the great God who is and is to come, but yet he may be taken, in a certain sense, as the revelation of him. The Father remains at rest in the unseen. The Son is born to man out of his own soul. Mystical knowledge is thus an actual event in the cosmic process. It is the birth of the divine. It is an event as real as any natural event, only enacted on a higher plane. The great secret of the mystic is that he himself creates his God, but that he first prepares himself to recognize the God created by him. The uninitiated man has no feeling for the father of that God, for the father slumbers under a spell. The son appears to be born of a virgin, the soul having seemingly given birth to him without impregnation. All her other children are conceived by the sense world. Their father may be seen and touched, having the life of sense. The divine Son alone is begotten of the hidden, eternal, divine Father himself. And we're going to wrap up with, there was no virgin birth. There was no prophecy of a virgin birth. You can go back to Isaiah. Isaiah was talking about his own child that he was having with this maiden, not some virgin. It is an important thing to understand. If you are wanting to seek the path, then you have to understand that. Now, in part, this is true because the divine that awakens, the sun that is going out into the world, is each and every one of us, male or female, it doesn't matter, the law of genders. You are the embodiment of God. You are the change that he wishes to see. You are who he wishes to awaken. You are the active force of change in this world. And that is true for every single human being ever. Not any one in particular, but all of them collectively. The intention is, when you are incorporated into this world, to awaken, to not be held down by the various control systems by which you have been indoctrinated. They didn't really get into deeply here the divine son. So we're not going to get into that yet. That's coming. I can feel it. We're right around the corner from it, right? The son appears to be born of a virgin, the soul having seemingly given birth to him. That's not a thing. That's not a thing in the Bible. It was not a prophecy that was given for it to happen, and it was something that was attached after the life of. I don't doubt that a man named Jesus walked and performed miracles. I am performing miracles. Is it the flashy kind that he did? I'm not walking out putting my hands on other people. I performed the miracles in my life. I, through prayer, fasting, and meditation, and direct manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation, have healed myself. I have affected change outside of myself. I have done some pretty crazy things, right? If I claimed the things that I prayed for, you would call me nuts. But I prayed that the censorship would be lifted the day before Elon took over Twitter, or said he was going to take over Twitter. The day before, I asked for the censorship to be rolled back, and it started happening. I asked for the change in leadership, and we got it. I have asked for several things which have happened in the last few years. Now, for me to take full credit of that is a little bit heady, and so I don't, right? I'm not here like... I prayed in this election cycle for the Electoral College, for the popular vote, for the Congress and the Senate, and guess what? My God came through. But it would be a little bit wild for me to say that it was entirely me, right? But I believe that. It was my prayers being answered that led to this. It was my prayers of healing that led to me being healed in ways that I didn't even ask for. It is continuously healing me today. I am getting better every single day, and that is directly from God, but it is directly through the electromagnetics that I get to move. I get to change things. I get to manifest things. And that is the part that Christianity took from you. That is the part that Judaism took from you. That is the part that Islam took from you. That is the part that Buddhism takes from you. You are the agent of change. You get to create your reality. There are rules. There are things that you have to abide by. There are 8 laws of creation. There are various other control systems in place that you have to play with. You don't get to just upturn all of society, but you do get to make significant changes. You do get to make things happen. It is a truth, and I don't care if that steps on your toes. Like, how could I hold myself back from what God has told me and shown me and given me the results of, because it might hurt your feelings? That you might have to think outside of the box that you were raised in. You don't hold these feelings for yourself. You haven't spent the time. I can guarantee that. Because I have. I did the work. We went through and looked at the prophecies, and they all came up lacking. Every single one of the prophecies of Jesus coming later was not. That was not a prophecy for any of them. That's a hard reality for you to face. I understand that. Judaism, as a whole, is horrible. Animal sacrifice is a terrible thing. The things that they enacted, the laws that came directly from God, some of them were pretty terrible. I refuse to believe that the creator of all things said that it's okay to hit somebody in the head with a rock because they picked up a stick. That is stupid. I refuse to believe that. God is bigger than that. What I am attempting to do in these studies, besides step on everybody's toes, is to show you that God is bigger than your conception of him. If you believe that God is just sitting up there on a throne, waiting for the day that he can come and rain vengeance upon the planet, you're going about it entirely wrong. If you believe that he is sitting up there waiting to see whether or not you commit a sin, you're wrong. And if you think that he is waiting on you to accept the death of somebody halfway through history in order to be able to forgive you, you are wrong as well. And I understand, I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but I have no choice. I do what I do because God himself has healed me. I do what I do because God himself has revealed to me the things that I reveal to you, that I am trying to peel back the veil on, that I'm trying to show you that you can go to a direct relationship with God, that you do not need an intermediary, and you never have. That is important. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion and didn't step on too many toes, but it is what it is. I am here to tell you. I'm not even here to convince you, right? It may seem that way because I repeat myself, but it's not. Like, you are more than welcome to be blessed elsewhere. The people who this is intended for will find it and be fine. They will put into practice the things that I have outlined in these, the things I have outlined in these, and they will find God. And that is what I am here for. It is not for the ones who doubt. Doubt away. I don't care. You can leave the comments. I will be respectful, as I was in the ones today. And I will tell you that you're wrong, and then I will maybe even put you in a video. I'm not going to call your name, but you know who you are. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you have something that you would like to see me talk about in the manner that we are doing here, leave that in the comments as well. If you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. I want you to have what I have. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.